Guys, Friday morning is our favorite day because we get to invite amazing, amazing guests to the team. And today we are in for it. I am thrilled, Jenna, to have you joining us. Thank you so much for taking the
Good
time.
morning. Hi, Matt. Hi, guys. I'm really honored to be on the show with you and connect with you. I'm actually all the way out in Oklahoma, and I just had stumbled onto the podcast and really liked what you guys are doing and wanted to be a part of it. But it's totally an honor to be here.
That is a Rainbow Shine sweatshirt, if I am accurate. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. I'm
Thank
I'm
you.
a horse lover.
Thank you for bringing Rainbow Shine to the morning call. I love it. Jenna, we are equally privileged to have you here because I've had an opportunity to look through your, I don't know, resume, your history, and I am so excited to just sort of hear your story. This call for our team started about 7 years ago now, when I was in the very fortunate position of having had some success, lucky, just in the right place at the right time a lot of the time, and got to get into some really great rooms with some incredible leaders and some people who had amazing stories to tell. And I was in that early phase of becoming the person that I am today, becoming a better leader, learning how to become a better leader, learning how to expand influence. And what I realized was that all these amazing rooms that I got into, I was learning at such a rapid pace, but I was no good at the transfer of knowledge. And the first acknowledgement that I had was I have to get out of the way and bring the leaders to the team rather than try to be the voice of all things. Just get out of the way. And so we started this call pre-COVID, before people knew how to use Zoom. I had to teach all these people about video calls. Right now we're all pros, but I had to say, look, you click the link, the camera comes on. We used to have separate cameras, and we started
Yep.
doing these video calls back then. And it's become really our favorite call on the team. So you today are our special guest, and boy, what a story you have. So Jenna, number one, I understand that you have a tremendous real estate business, investment business that's grown and done exceptional things, but that's not where you started. So let's do the whole bio. Like, take us back to the beginning. How did you
Okay.
and you can, everybody, we like to hold the end of the story because we know where you're at is unbelievable. But let's start in the beginning and hear how'd you get there? How'd you wind up here today on this call as our special guest?
Okay, well, I actually grew up in rural South Dakota on a buffalo ranch. And so my family didn't have a lot of, real estate background or history or anything, but that's where my dad ended up. And it was really cool to watch him transition from being a rancher into a realtor. And as a young girl, he always, educated me and my sister and my brother on the value in equity and how important it is to hold real estate over time. And as a young kid, I didn't really care. I just wanted to go to college with my friends, and I grew up rodeoing, and so that was my priority. But I did get into the military at a young age, and so that kind of led me all over the world. But long story short, I ended up getting out of the military to pursue rodeo full time as a barrel racer. And I had trained the horse that I went pro with and just thought this was where my story was going to end up. And I couldn't have been further from the truth. I ended up going totally broke on the rodeo road. And now that I was out of the military, I didn't even have that to fall back on. So I
All right,
really
hang
was
on. Hold on, Jenna. We
okay.
gotta hit the timeout button. You just landed like three separate careers as if they were side notes. Military, professional rodeo. I mean, you said military young. Let's go there. Okay, so
Okay.
grew up on a buffalo ranch.
Hmm.
No one on this call grew up anywhere near anything other than Hidden Valley Ranch. Okay, that's as much ranching as you've got. So everybody here, I mean, we're in Connecticut, very densely populated state.
Oh, sure.
We certainly have our farms and our cows, but we don't have Buffalo Ranch. So what was
So
that
this is
like?
exactly what you'd see in the movies. It was almost 10,000 acres, and it was something that my great great granddad had homesteaded. in 1909, and the original part of the house that we lived in, the kitchen was actually original, and they just had built on and expanded, and it was almost like Yellowstone, where that ranch was passed down through, each family, and there is so much going on politically and just the factors that put stress on my dad to keep the ranch going was kind of like you would see in Yellowstone. There's a lot to it, but growing up on a ranch was really fun and really, a unique experience, especially I think in our world today. Those type of ranches are just, they're going away, and nobody really, unless you are born into it, you're probably not going to get into that lifestyle at all. So it
Well,
was
you're
pretty
most
neat.
likely it's near impossible to buy a ranch, right? Like so.
Well, that level for sure. And the learning curve is so high that even if you loved it, the financial, barrier to entry is probably not something most people can deal with. But even if you had the money to go out and buy something like that, the learning curve to just take care of animals and, respect the land in a way that it's going to be able to provide for you over several years isn't something that most people know. And it is hard work, and it doesn't pay that well, even when you are successful.
Yeah,
So I
and
really
so yeah,
respect people who ranch still today.
you have so how many brothers and sisters with you? What was your family dynamic on the ranch?
An
It,
older sister and a younger brother, and we all ended up going into the military, but none of our family had come from military, so that was like way in left field. But my dad
interesting.
was always really progressive and always such a forward thinker, and actually he grew up in the cattle and sheep industry. He didn't always raise buffalo, but when the buffalo industry kind of started, he was reading about the animal and what an amazing animal that they are. The meat is a little bit leaner, and the animal is a lot hardier, especially in the cold weather. So he just thought they were so cool and took a chance and got into that industry early on. And now I think it's more common to see like buffalo or bison meat in Whole Foods and things like that, or Sprouts. But back then, he was one of the people who kind of led that movement as a leaner whole meat, and to also do the grass fed and grass finished rather than grain finished like in a feedlot. So he was just always very forward thinking. And I don't know if anybody realizes there was a huge buffalo market crash around 2005, right before the big housing crash. So the financial stress that my dad was ultimately under led him to look at real estate, and he ended up getting his license in a tri-state area to sell bigger ranches. And that's kind of what saved our family, honestly, was just his ability to look at real estate and realize how much value there was there.
Mhm.
And like in ranching, you're only ever going to be able to sell as many cows or calves as you're able to raise in that year. But with real estate, there is no limiting time factor. That way you can have 1,000 properties if you can figure out how to manage it. But for a rancher, the time trading was just never going to let him, dig out of the hole that we ended up being in after both of the markets crashed. So he got
That's
into real
amazing.
estate. And at that time, there wasn't, mentors and groups where you could go sit in a room and learn why this is the way that you should go. He had to, just think of it, because there wasn't really even the internet when he was doing that. And I remember at his first real estate office, if you were a buyer, you'd have to come in and flip through a little binder with printouts of what was like the MLS sheet. So
Yeah.
I think that was so cool that he was able to do that. And he ended up putting a down payment on a multifamily commercial property that by the time my sister had graduated college was, paid off. And that was like one of the biggest things that he did for our family financially, was just to take a chance on real estate, even though there wasn't so much hype about it. And kind of fast forward to now, where I think if you have that mentality that you want to learn, you want to be a student, and you want to find people who have succeeded in this world, and ask them questions and get in the same rooms with them, you can fast forward a decade and not even have to go through all that struggle and not figure it out. So we're in a really unique, time in history where we have access just at our fingertips. And I love that you guys are advertising that to your team, because that's been one of the biggest turning points in my life, was to get a coach and get a mentor, even when I didn't have any money. And that kind of goes back to my story as a barrel racer. I went like so broke. I did not know how I was going to function again. Credit
We all
cards.
we all know
Oh my
what's so.
God.
There's no one on the team here that doesn't know what so broke feels like, because
Yeah.
it's
Like,
a little bit of a prerequisite. So I have a couple things I want to pull out. These that like what we always look for here is like, let's pull the leadership, personal development lessons out. So number one, your dad, having inherited this ranch, gone through what you describe as an incredibly difficult, challenging type of a business, which, those of us that know and understand what ranching looks like, it's clear that is not for the faint of heart. And
mm-mm.
so he goes from that into the real estate business. I would be so interested and ask him this question, because no one ever says that getting into real estate is easy. But I would bet that your dad thinks it's a layup compared to ranching. I would be willing to bet that if you asked your dad, would you like to go back to ranching or sell another property, that he would say, man, selling a property is a cakewalk considering.
Yeah.
And what I love about that is I love this industry for that reason. We talk about on the team that in this business you could change your life in 90 days. You could legitimately move the needle on the things that are important versus the things that aren't. In 90 days, you can have a totally different outcome because you can so dramatically impact your income by being proactive about what you're doing. Your dad, having that knowledge inside of ranching, put him into a niche that I could never fill with 20 years of real estate experience. A
Hmm.
rancher is never going to be able to have a conversation with me about selling their ranch. I don't know
Yep.
anything about it. I don't understand the nuance of what it means. I don't know what the valuations are. I don't understand what one field means to versus another to somebody that's trying to run that business. And so his ability to step into that and turn that into a lucrative business, and then obviously to set the example for you, which led you into it. Now, let's flip the page, because you go from ranching and then you keep going. We're going to get to the rodeo, but I want to hear about the military.
Okay,
You
sure.
said
Yeah, I
all
kind of
three,
fast forward over that.
yeah, you keep jumping over that. And if I remember from your bio correctly, you did a couple tours overseas in Afghanistan. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, I
Okay.
actually have been to 43 countries now, largely in part to the military. But the deployments that I first went on were to Iraq and Afghanistan. And yeah, that was eye-opening for somebody who had really never been out of the state. And it was definitely a way to grow up fast. And I wanted to see the world, and that's exactly what I got to do. I was serving in operations intelligence, so we did some of the mission planning. And then later on in my career, I got more into surveillance and reconnaissance, which I thought was really exciting and fun. But yeah, it's a whole different world, and there's a lot of similarities that I've used, in the military and also with our real estate business. Now that I can see that, but at the time, it's difficult to ask a young person to give up a year of their life to go, to the desert.
Yeah, to the desert. Not that, I mean, really, ranching and serving in Afghanistan sound like a pretty far cry from each other. I would imagine.
Yeah.
So you said all three of your siblings enlisted, all in the
Mhm.
army, all different branches, which
No, we were all in the Air National Guard, and
okay.
I'm not sure exactly how we landed there. It was like a friend who said, the Air Force is probably going to treat you the best, and then if you are able to get into the Guard, you have the option to go full time, or you can just be 1 weekend a month. So there was a lot of flexibility in that choice. And then you also are guaranteed to come back to the state that you sign up in. So we
Okay.
we all wanted to stay in South Dakota, so we thought. I actually never really went back to live there, but I wanted to just call South Dakota home, and we were so new to the military that I had no idea what we were signing up for, but I didn't think that I would make it a career. I just wanted to get the education benefits, get school paid for, and get the sign on bonus that was offered in Intel at the time, and then come back to my regular life. But yeah,
And you
life
didn't think
changed.
you'd make it a career, but how
No.
long were you in the military?
I was in for 9 years,
Yeah.
got out to pro rodeo, and then I went back to contracting as a civilian. And that's kind of a weird thing. You're doing the exact same job right beside the military, but you are a civilian. So you have a little more flexibility because you can quit whenever you want. You're not
Well, the way I
under a
see it is you can
contract.
wear whatever clothes you want. That's what it looks like.
Exactly.
Yeah, you just don't have
Yeah.
to wear the camo, right? You can wear.
Ends up being a brown t-shirt and khaki pants, but yeah, that choice is yours.
So, all right. So, like, I mean, I love this path, Jenna. It's wild. So you go military, deployment, intelligence, decide to come back and say, let's give this rodeo thing a shot.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
of the spin the wheel of careers that you might land on, I don't know how many choices there are before rodeo shows up. So this is
Yeah.
obviously something that you had a passion for, something that you grew up around, because again, you're talking to a bunch of people in New England. I've never been to a rodeo. Like I've
Okay.
never anybody here ever been to a rodeo? Put your hand up if you have. Couple people. But Corey, in Connecticut or somewhere else?
And Goshen.
In Goshen? They
Yeah,
do
they have it
rodeo in
every
Goshen?
year.
All right, I gotta go. All right, I'm in. All right, awesome.
I
So
don't
I know
think
there's
it's
bull
probably
riding.
this. I
yeah,
don't
I
think
mean,
it's this. I
I've
don't think
just
it's the
like
same caliber. Trust me.
what I've okay, awesome. Yeah, what I've seen is what's on TV. That's effectively what
Hmm.
I've seen, Jenna. So how do you land in professional rodeo? How does that happen?
Well, as I was growing up through rodeo, we also did rodeo queen competitions. I'm sure nobody's ever heard of that, but it's like a beauty pageant, but for rodeo. And so instead of talent, you ride your horse basically and execute a pattern. And then for your year, you go around all the other rodeos and do some of the same outreach that any pageant queen would. But my dream was always to be Miss Rodeo America. And I just thought, who better to represent the industry of, Western sports than somebody who's been in it for their whole life. I absolutely love it. And there is a time limit on that. So you can't do it forever. I think it was 25 was the age requirement. So when I realized I was getting close to that, I was stationed in Florida in Destin, which was like party town, no horses
Oh,
really around there. But I said, I'm going to run for Miss Rodeo Florida. And if it works out, then I'll pursue this. And if not, whatever. But I don't want to take that chance for myself. So I ended up winning and I got to represent Florida Rodeo for a year, which is actually a pretty great state for rodeo, but they do it in the winter where it's cold everywhere else. Everybody goes to the south. We never really make it to the East Coast actually, but the pro circuit will go down to Florida quite a bit. And then I got my heart broken at Miss Radio America. I didn't win, boohoo. But at the time, it was pretty devastating to me because you don't have another chance, and that was a goal that I had had my whole life. So I just that was the first time I really had to face the question, who are you really? And if it's not going to be in rodeo, what do you want your life to look like? Where do you want to go? And
yeah.
I just thought the reasons that I wanted to be a rodeo queen was to be involved in the sport. And as a barrel racer, you can take that political opinion and all the, judgment out that comes with being a pageant queen and just race against the clock. And at this time, I hadn't ridden a horse, other than queening. I hadn't ridden a pro level barrel horse in like 7 years. And it is not like riding a bike. It's more like Ricky Bobby getting back into the race car and
Yeah.
thinking that he's on fire. That's how
Yeah.
it felt. But I got a horse off the racetrack because I couldn't just afford to go buy a pro level horse. So I trained a crazy racehorse and he ended up being really good. And it was it was the beginning of a fairy tale ending. We went pro quickly, we were winning, and I just couldn't stand the fact that, maybe you're going to get called to deploy and you've definitely got to miss a weekend here and there for drill. So I got out to pursue that. And it was one of the times in my life. It was so much fun, but it was grueling and very, very expensive. And my
What do
horse ended
you
up getting hurt, but
What is, well, isn't that sort of par for the course? Doesn't everybody that does rodeo get hurt? Isn't that sort of,
well, the idea in the barrel racing is to never come off. So like bull riding, whether you
yeah.
make the 8-second whistle or not, you're going to hit the ground. So there is a lot of wear and tear on your body. But as a barrel racer, you can do it until you're like 60. I think the oldest cowgirl to make the finals was 64. So it's more of a training competition and then having that one-off unique horse who's just fast and they love it and they're just going to work hard and give you their heart. But like today, the competition is so difficult and so so competitive that you've got to have a couple of horses like that to really be able to make it. And rodeo is year round. There is no real on or off season. You just kind of follow the weather or follow the bigger rodeos. So for a horse to be your only horse, they've really got to be special in that they can take that on their bodies, because it's your horse that ends up, receiving the wear and tear. And they are also traveling with you, and they can't lay down in the back of the trailer to go to sleep. So not only is it hard in the arena, but it's all the stuff outside of the arena that actually knocks people out. You've got to be a great rider, got to have a great horse, but it's the logistics and the figuring everything out all on your own. It is not a team sport, and nobody is, really going to help you when it comes down to it. You're competitors, so it's unique.
I want to take a jump into the deep end here for a second.
Okay.
Okay. We get to interview a lot of really, really spectacular and special people, and there's a theme, and you are exhibiting it through this part of your story, and we haven't even gotten to the end. There's something unique about people that are willing to do and try just about anything with the mindset and intention that I'm going all in and I'm going to win. I'm going to be the best I can. And in every every chapter of your story, you have displayed that. Like in a very short period of time, what I see is somebody that if you decided tomorrow that you were going to be a pilot, you'd be like, awesome.
I actually am a pilot.
Of course you are. Yeah, of course you are. But like,
No.
I can see very clearly that you have a mindset of potential optimism and opportunity that you said, I'm going to get into rodeo, not just get into rodeo. I'm going to be the rodeo. I'm going to win. I'm going to be the best. I'm going to get in the military. I'm going to travel the world. I've been to 43 like you see potential in everything. And here's what I find really interesting. What I find interesting is that most of the people that we talk to who have these extraordinary stories of success come from a place of adversity. And you started your story by saying that ranching was really hard. You certainly didn't grow up in a cushy suburb, right? You probably had some like chores and stuff you had to do around the farm and around the ranch. And what do you think that's all about? Where did that mindset come from for you?
I don't know if you're born with it or it's something that's kind of ingrained based on your background, but I will say that entrepreneurs, people that truly succeed, in business have that spirit. And I don't know if that's something that you're born with or something that can be learned or given, but I see some of those same qualities in realtors, because this industry is hard and it's oversaturated, honestly, and so many people want to do it and think it looks cool, and then when you get inside of it, it's a lot of work, and there is a lot of time and experience that needs to be paid to get to the next level. And that's no different with rodeo or even with ranching. The things that I have found the most fulfillment in have been incredibly difficult and not fun in the beginning. And just grinding it out and showing up every day, you can pass a lot of people who want that instant satisfaction or, bigger payout without putting in the work. But I just think it's, probably something that you're kind of born with, just that spark to be a high achiever and to not only just play the game, but to be the best. And honestly, most entrepreneurs have failed so hard that it makes my story just, laughable comparing it. But
I would say, I would even suggest,
realize.
I would even suggest that I don't know that we've ever had a guest come on who didn't say, and then I careened off a cliff and crashed and burned. And then I start, so I don't know that that's ever happened. It is part of the story. And, it's like they don't build roller coasters in a straight line.
That's right.
Because that wouldn't be fun. Like that's just a commute. It's called commuting on a train. Like nobody says I'm going to the amusement park to get a commute, right? Like they go to roller coasters. That's life. Like that's the challenge of it. So your position, you think that you're born with it. I would debate that a little bit. Like
I would say you're born with the spark, because I wouldn't say everybody could end up here, doing what we want to do or anything like that. But you've got to nurture it and you've got to feed it, because you can also like snuff that little spark out too and find yourself in a 9 to 5 dead end type job that you hate and life is, not fun and not fulfilling at all.
Well, when you're in the real estate business, we are confronted on the regular with, tough months, tough seasons, right? You go
Mm-hmm.
through 3 months where it's like, boy, I haven't had a deal go under contract. And we talk about this a lot on the team that there's moments where people say like, maybe I'll never sell a house ever again, right? Which is absurd. Like some of us been in the business for 20 years, you wake up one day and you're like, obviously I'm terrible at this. And it's like, of course you're not terrible at it. Like there's a season to the way this goes, and that capacity for resilience and the ability to still do the thing that needs to be done every day consistently is the difference between those that have a career that's long and fulfilling versus the ones that get in, have a high moment and then get out. And we are in the lowest inventory state in the country here in Connecticut. It has never been more challenging in my 20 years. I've never seen a more challenging market because there's just a low level of transactions. And most of us are watching colleagues that have been in the business 15, 20 years just get out, just quit, just literally quit. And it's so interesting because what you're talking about, that resilience, that capacity to move into something despite adversity, despite how improbable, and still say, cool, I'm going to go do it anyway. And
Mm-hmm.
that's something super special, super unique. So, all right, back to your story. So you get into rodeo, and then you go back to private contracting in the military.
Yeah, well, what I held on for as long as I could, and it ended up being my horse getting hurt that really sealed the deal. So there was no other option. I was, maxing out credit cards, and I was behind on my mortgage payment, behind on my truck payment, and at one point they even shut my phone off. I mean, I was just kept thinking my big break was coming. Like we've worked our whole lives, like this has got to be my path, right? Like when does it get easier? But I think everything was just driving me to shift and to pivot. And so when my horse got hurt, I literally didn't have any other option but to go find a job. And I ended up getting 4 jobs that weren't very good jobs while trying to apply for like the job that might help me or at least patch some of the debt that I had buried myself under because it was like catastrophic. And at the end of the day, the only deal that I made with myself was I'm not going to sell my horse. And I could have for 6 figures, even hurt, because he had really gained value in that industry. But I couldn't do that to him. He had given me my whole career, and we were, best friends at this point. So I'm proud to have never done that. That was my line in the sand. But what I ended up doing was signing, not a great deal to go to Afghanistan for a full year, and you couldn't leave earlier. You had to repay your whole salary. So it was a very challenging deal to sign, but those are the type of people that they get into contracting at the lower end. And
Yeah.
while I was there, I just had the time and space to really think about what do you want your life to look like? How are you going to do it? How do other people who are financially successful, where do they find themselves? And the majority of millionaires, or even just people who are wealthy, they're in real estate. They just are. And in a bad market and a good market, they still have their hand in it. And just over time, it's one of the only industries who just continually goes up. I mean, there may be dips, but over time, real estate is a solid investment, better than the stock market, better than, anywhere else that you may put your money. And so I realized I do need to get back into real estate, focus on it. So I got my license while I was overseas, and I didn't realize, that was just the tip of the real estate spear for me.
So
But
would you say that at that moment, right? So you're there, you're evaluating all your options, which by the way, I cannot help but point out the irony of feeling like you're at rock bottom overseas in Afghanistan in a part of the world that literally feels like rock bottom, one of
yeah,
the poorest places in the world. And you say, I'm going to get into the real estate business. Meanwhile, there's a bunch of people in the real estate business that
yeah.
are at rock bottom that are like, boy, it'd be great if I could get a job, doing something else. Like I just can't help but point out the irony. I think, again, I would never give up this industry because there's never a day where there's not an opportunity. Never.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you make the decision, you get your license. Was that really motivated? Was your exposure to real estate through your dad primarily? Was that really where you knew it?
Well, It was through that hardship of having zero money and everything being taken from me, like my house, my truck, like my ability to communicate. I never wanted to go back there again. Like I wanted safety, security, and several income streams if I could help it, because that's the other thing that I learned about studying people who had wealth is that they don't rely on one job. And even pro athletes, when they get hurt or when their career ends, a lot of them actually go bankrupt. They get into financial trouble because making money is a different skill than keeping it. So I wanted to learn how to keep it, because over my lifetime I had made money and there's no real reason I should have squandered it and been in such a financial just disaster. So I knew I needed to learn. I knew I needed education, and I knew I needed to diversify. So yes, I'm good at this thing now, and it's taken up a year of my life and ended up being 6. But yeah, I knew that I needed to learn at a high rate, and I wasn't just starting at ground zero. I was in the hole. So I didn't need just thousands to get back to zero. I needed like hundreds of thousands, but that's something that real estate will allow. And it ended up, pointing me towards renovating. And at the time I didn't realize that I could renovate or, own commercial type properties or anything like that. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew that I needed to learn and study from people who were living a life that I wanted. And time freedom to me is the top tier priority, like right under, safety and stability, and just the ability to be like, yeah, I'm not going to be able to sell a house for maybe a year, but my house isn't going to be taken. Like I'm okay.
So walk us through your process. You you say, I'm coming back. I'm going to go into real estate. I'm going to make this my career. What was your first step? You got your license.
Well, the thing that I knew also is that it takes so much time that you've got to get in the game. And I really couldn't afford anything crazy. So I actually bought a metal home that's called a barn dominium. I don't know if you guys have those out in Connecticut at all, but I bought a barn dominium that some guy had built, nothing special, kind of run down, and it had 5 acres for the horses for $150,000. And, I knew about house hacking or slowly renovating over a 2-year process and then not having to pay taxes because it's your primary residence. So that was kind of in the back of my mind that I was going to fix this. And in 2 years, I'll have something to play with. I'll have something to start with, because I'm going to sell, and we're going to do it again and do it again in 2-year chunks. And if that's the only thing I'm able to do, I know that I'll at least be able to roll into a nicer, bigger house and hopefully someday just own it outright. But I bought that house like right before the market got crazy. And so I got it at a really great price. And when I was ready to sell, it was worth a lot more than I realized. And through that process, I met my husband in Afghanistan, and he used to be an electrician, which actually worked out really well. So we did that together and realized, like, wow, we made more on this deal than we did all year, as a contractor, not together, but individually. That could replace one of our income. So let's run in this direction. And same kind of thing we were dealing with, we don't have a lot of capital, credit's not great. What can we do? And we looked to the foreclosure market to find a house that was definitely in distress and that would be under market value. And we just really, I don't know if we got lucky or just did our homework, but the first foreclosure we got, we knew that's what we're going to do. This is how we get out of contracting. And this has the potential to, really take off for us. And I definitely look at a house different than I did as a novice renovator, because oh my God, we worked so hard on that house. That was one of the hardest things I've ever done. I'd rather go back to Afghanistan for the same amount of time than to work on that house. Did everything ourselves. And
what was your key leverage point? Was it the equity that you got in the first property? Mm-hmm. Was that what allowed you to get into
that? Unlocked everything else. Yep.
Okay. So you take us through the numbers. So you bought the barn dominium. And we
got it for $150, and I want to say we put around 25,000 into it. We did like luxury vinyl plank flooring. We painted everything, obviously, did the electrical finishings. My husband, put all of that in, and had a friend that was a plumber to kind of fix up the bathrooms, and we made around 115,000 on it when we had sold. And to have
Right.
that tax free, oh my God, that's crazy.
It's
And
crazy.
then we bought our next property with a VA loan. So I also got my 20% back because that was conventional. So we had a decent chunk to play with. And so that's what got us started into the foreclosure thing, because there you've got to put money down the day that you bid, and we ended up financing it before we took possession with like a hard money loan. But to get into that game, you've got to have cash, and you've really got to do your homework, because there's no inspection period. You're not going to be able to get in there, and there may be junior liens. Like, it's a very dangerous, high stakes game. But you could make that amount of money. Like, we did the renovation in 3 months because we were on break from a rotation to Afghanistan, and we had to. And so we lived there. We slept on the ground, with like scorpions and mold. Like,
I mean, there
oh
is
my
some,
God.
it sounds to me, your military training may have come in handy there, because I
Yeah.
know a lot of people on
Yes.
this call would not be sleeping on the ground with scorpions rolling around.
Well, it just comes back to how bad do you want it? I mean, it's
Yeah,
this, or I know what it's like to be broke and they're going to take your house. So,
yeah, yeah,
like, the being at rock bottom really gave me such gratitude for even being able to be in the deal. So I
yeah.
was thankful to have a way to make money. I was just happy to be working towards something, and to be on a path towards progress is where I feel the most fulfillment. Don't even have to be there yet. Just to know that you're working towards something and incrementally making progress. That's where I thrive. And don't get me wrong, there were some hard days and a lot of days where I said, just send me back to Afghanistan. I don't know if this is it, but I'm so proud we made it through that. And we've, built a lot of different systems around that model now, so that we're not, doing everything anymore. But that was, it was the price to enter, I guess, and
Yeah.
to
So,
know it is valuable.
so the first one leverages into the next one, and then you realize, okay, this is really where we're going to put our effort and energy. And it does not look like, from your background, you guys are sleeping on the floor anymore.
No,
So
this is actually a renovation that is
love
under
it.
contract, getting inspected today, and we had a bunch of insulation that still needed to go in the attic, so we sat here
Awesome.
to.
So now you're doing this in Oklahoma. Is this
Mhm.
primarily where you're doing? So take
Yep.
us through, like, the last couple of years. So as you're building your business, what's it look like now?
Sure.
What are all the elements of it? Where are you making money? And then take us through the future. Where are you heading?
Okay. Yeah, so this has all happened really fast for us. We've only been doing this full time for a year. And then before that, we started around 2020, when COVID was kind of happening, with our first flip. And our business model is to flip for cash and to get, things fast with these renovations. But the ultimate goal is to sink those into long-term rentals, and eventually with the idea of getting into commercial, which I have learned is, very difficult, a whole different ball game, but totally
Totally.
doable. It's totally doable.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're running in education in that direction now. But what we needed to learn was, how to analyze a deal, and it isn't in the renovation that you make the money. It's in the buy. So to know your numbers, and I don't mean like, what is the floor going to cost, what is XYZ going to cost. It's holding costs, closing costs, the cost to insure it, and what if it sits on the market for 6 months. Those are the things that younger renovators or newer flippers don't even account for, and we did not. And I
No,
said,
where it's
like,
where I see most people make the mistake, is they go,
yes.
I could buy it for 100, it only needs 50, and I could sell it for
Hmm.
200. And you go, you're going to lose money. And they go, how am I going to lose money? I'll make 50. I'm like, you're going to insure it. You're going to own it for 6 months. You're going to have,
Hmm.
interest rate costs. You're going to have unknowables. You're going to lose money. You're probably going to go bankrupt on that deal. And people can
Yeah.
never, a lot of, like you said, amateur new investors really can't account for the time frame and the cost of
Hmm.
time. By the way, the other thing is, like you talked about on your first deal, you guys did all the work. That's also a trade. You're trading your time that you could be making money
Hmm.
doing something else to make money on this. So unless your margins are better than whatever your hourly rate or your exchange value is on the market, you're actually still losing money.
Yeah. And a lot of flippers too, I don't know if they realize like you don't own a business, you own a job. If you're doing all of the work yourselves, you are a glorified construction worker with a lot of paperwork and a lot of stress and a lot of risk.
Get a
So
lot
that
of risk
was
and overhead. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, that was how we got in, because we could save money or beat out all these other bigger investment companies that want to flip for volume just because they're not going to get their labor any cheaper than we're doing it because we're doing it for free. But over, the course of our journey, I've realized, you do need to account for labor. And if you're not paying a contractor, you need to be paying yourself to make it work because otherwise it isn't worth it. But in the beginning, we were okay with making less, working more just to get in the game. And to now have some properties under your belt, lenders look at you different. People may want to, invest their private equity with you, which is totally the way to go if you're able. And yeah, the experience that you gain, it's not all lost, but in the beginning, it was a lot of just sweat equity and working really hard and learning things the hard way. And I'm sure anybody who's done a lot of inspection knows like there is so much to any given house, any given project. There's just so much that's going to go wrong and unforeseen costs. And we're still not so good at our numbers that we nail them. We're always, over. There's always stuff that comes up. But to know that and just put a blanket 5%, 2% like increase on your budget, that's where we're at now. We look at houses a whole lot different. So roofs, foundation, things like that. I didn't know that, any random roof could be a $30,000 issue if you don't see it well or address it correctly. Like, is this insurable? Things like that are tough lessons to learn along the way if you're not, prepared for it. But
tell me, what's the business look like today? How many houses
so
are you guys doing? What's your goal for acquisition? Like,
yeah. So today we're fully in the scaling struggle. So we're looking at buying not foreclosures, but off-market deals with wholesalers or just distressed sellers. And that's where, relying on your network of realtors comes in clutch because I don't have time to, comb the MLS. I've got to chase contractors and write estimates and get the materials delivered. I'm so busy, but I am a buyer. We're cash buyers. We want to close in 2 weeks. Like if you can find local investors in your network, and they are absolutely there. And I didn't realize what a big world it is and how competitive it is. And so many people doing it. Had no idea. So we didn't reinvent the wheel. We're just, getting on. But the investors here, like if I wasn't doing it myself, I would just buddy up to them because they want to flip, 100 houses a year and they don't mind paying you. I would love to pay a realtor the full 3% if they bring me a deal, whatever. But it is hard to find people who get it, who understand, my buy box and that I can trust. But if you can find investors, that's a whole nother avenue even when the market's bad. That's when they are like buying through the roof. And it's maybe not as big a numbers as you're wanting, but you got to look at the volume. If you're their right-hand man, they're going to give you 10 or maybe 100 deals a year. And then you've got that relationship with them where when they go to buy a bigger, buy and hold property, they want to use you. So
what's the market like in Oklahoma right now? Like from an inventory standpoint, are there a lot of deals to be had?
So the average time on market for us is around 4 months right now, and it's definitely a buyer's market, but I feel like the numbers are shifting. It's getting better, but I also feel like everybody's been told that for so long that we're just waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Yeah.
But like this house, this was one where we learned the cost to hold it because we started looking at this property about a year ago right now, and the foreclosure thing drags out 3-4 months and renovations take a couple. So this house has been on the market a year, but we've been paying for it almost a year, but been on the market 6 months. So this was one that I feel like was one of my favorites, but ended up, it's not a grand slam for us. We'll be in the green, but we've got to do way more volume if this is what our market is right now. So we're able to do.
When you guys put a brand new product on the market, totally renovated, top to bottom, completely redone, how long does it take you typically to sell it?
Well, if you can catch that initial interest and initial wave, like 2 weeks, maybe a month, like that's what you want. You want to be the best house in the market. Yep. At the lowest price. So I am willing to give up price for speed.
Mhm.
And, you know, in the beginning, I didn't want that. I thought, you know, our house is worth this. It's better than all the rest. I want to be priced appropriately. And so, you know, yeah, you can do that. And once you get into a
But you
listing that's
realize like
stagnant,
every day that goes by costs you some money.
yes,
And your holdout, eventually you hit a break, you hit a point where you lose, right? And so
yeah,
the velocity in the business that you're in investing, velocity is one of the key elements of success, is move it
mm,
quickly, even if it's less. Your speed to get
yep,
to the next deal is where you're going to make money.
mm-hmm,
Before we sort of move into the last phase of our questions, I wanted to ask you, um, you talk about in your bio, this concept of identity, and how identity is really what you consider the foundation of your capacity for moving through personal development, leadership, and your story clearly tells that. I mean, you have lived four different lives as far as I can tell in the short time that you've been on this earth, right? You are a rodeo queen. You are a military, intelligence officer. You are a rancher, and you are a realtor investor.
mm-hmm,
Any one of those would be one life for most people, right? Would be one highlight reel. And I get the impression you're not done. I mean, astronaut might be available soon. They're putting rockets in outer space. Oh, and you're a pilot, right? And I'm sure there's other things in there that are pretty
yeah.
extraordinary. So this concept of identity is something that I'm fascinated by. I'm fascinated by the idea that on any given day you can wake up and just say, I'm different. I'm this other version of me because you can simply imagine it. And we see that constantly through stories of success. You see that as an element that shows up in, um, you know, every foundational framework for how to achieve a high level of success from the masters in the space, Tony Robbins, to the folks that are new to the space, like, Jay Shetty, who are saying,
Mm-hmm.
hey, you can be a different version of you. You just have to visualize and imagine it. Talk to us about your concept around that kind of I understand you're writing a book. Like give us some insight that you're how do you reframe who you are?
So I think when everything was taken away from me, all of the titles that I thought that I had, or anything that I identified as, like an Intel analyst or a cowgirl, like when all of that was taken, it really forces you to ask, well, who are you really? Are you anyone of value without all of these things or all of this recognition? And it kind of made me ask, like, why do you want to be a pro barrel racer so bad? What is it? Is it that other people recognize you're a great trainer? Like, do you need that to be who you are? And if that's not the case, which I think when you stare that question in the face, the answer is no. It shouldn't be for recognition or anything worldly or prizes or applause. And unfortunately, we get so caught up wanting that. But at the end of the day, that's not what you're going to take with you, and it's totally meaningless. What matters to me is the passion and the feelings of fulfillment that I get to experience every day, and to ask where those come from. What is it really about rodeo that makes me feel so much joy? Is it that connection with your horse? Okay, then you can build again. You can keep your horse. Let's go in a different direction. You're still you. So I feel like I've been forced to ask myself that when I had no other option. And in answering it, that's how I figured out which way I was going to run to next. And I feel like for me, I just want to succeed so bad that when I find the path, I go as fast as I can and as hard as I can, to try to, feel like I'm worth something. But at the end of the day, which I do talk about in my book, the identity of you has nothing to do with what you may achieve, but it's
Mhm.
more who you're becoming along that path. So if you want to be, a financially literate millionaire, how do they get up every day? Like, what are they doing with their time that you aren't? And
I
if
love
you
that.
mirror them and you do what they're doing with their day, you're guaranteed to get close. You may not, be the richest person in the world, but you can at least have stability to allow you to do other things. And
You just
that's
said something, you said something really important, Jenna, which is that what you do is you ask yourself for, and I want to capture it like this. By
Mhm.
stripping away the titles and the expectations and the idea of like, oh, this is who I am. By stripping that away and saying, no, I'm just this raw material. Number one, who do I want to be? Asking that question and then modeling modeling the behaviors of the person that looks the most like what you're trying to do. What I love about that is the way you described it is that it is literally the exact same formula that you hear people talk about over and over again. Gary Keller uses the word find an avatar and a mentor. He says that the way that we become the version of us that we want to become is you go and find somebody who's living the life that you want to live in that category: financial,
Mhm.
health, relationship, wealth, fatherhood, whatever it is. Find that person and then do what they do. Become the avatar, become the version that acts and looks just like them until you become the person. And then magically you transform, right? You just become that person, right? It just becomes who you becomes your new identity. It's brilliant. It is one of the things that's, I think, one of the hardest parts. I think where people struggle is in the letting go of the prior identity. Because in the absence of that, then who are we? And
Mhm.
sometimes the world shows up and strips it from us. The world shows up and says, sorry, you lose, bankrupt, lose this, you're out, no whammies, right? You get the like whatever the game show thing is, you're out. Like you ran out of options. Now you have to reinvent yourself. But some of us are struggling inside of, but this is who I am and this is who I want to be, but I'm afraid to let go of who I am. And in that transfer is where really the magic happens, right? We're afraid of what it means to all the people that are around us. We're afraid of the conversations we might have to have with the people we love. We're
Mhm.
afraid of how they're going to judge us or look at us. If, like, you went from the military to rodeo, I gotta bet that somebody was like, wait, what, Jenna? You have
Yeah.
this great career. Wait, what? I'm
Yeah.
sorry. That sounds impractical and unreasonable and
Irresponsible,
unrealistic.
blah blah blah.
Yeah, I'm
Yep.
sure there were people, and you were still like, sorry, dude, this is me now. I
Yeah.
love that.
And one of the reasons it pushed me was those naysayers and those people being negative in my environment every day. I'd go to the office and they just didn't get me. And I just wanted to be around people that got it and that wanted to do more than the 9 to 5. So,
How about that, guys? Like, how many of us are bringing home our dream of real estate, and we're walking around with our dream of being massively successful in this business and letting other people's expectations dictate the version of you that you know you are? Well, I can't quite get there yet because, oh, so and so thinks I'm going to be this way, or this is how I'm supposed to show up, as
mm-hmm.
opposed to just doing it. There is no mystery, right? Like, to be a top producer in real estate, what do we have to do? Talk to a lot of people about real estate. And yet we're like, well, I want to make sure that it doesn't infringe on the version of who I am right now. I don't want them to think differently of me. Well, then they won't. And then you get to still be the identity that you are. Jenna, this has been brilliant, amazing. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
So many awesome lessons here, so many awesome things. Thank you for your service, for all the years that you committed to serving the country. Appreciate that. Thank you for bringing us rodeo knowledge. Guys,
Yeah.
before we wrap up, any comments, questions, kudos, throw up your hands for Jenna. Give her a shout out. And how can we help you, Jenna? While people are
Well,
thinking of what they might want to ask you, how do
if
we
you'd
help you?
like if you'd like to connect with me, you can find me at my real name. It's Jenna Rene Soto on all platforms, or my website is Jenna Rene Soto as well. And I would love to connect with you. And if you liked some of the things that I was saying, my book is coming out April 23rd. So I'm really excited to share that with the world. And I'd love it if you'd go download it, or yeah, just reach out with any questions you might have. I like to connect with like-minded folks. So
So we'll find you. We'll find you on Instagram. Jeremy, take us home today, buddy. What did you learn from Jenna?
Uh,
What
I
was the
mean,
name of her book? I'm sorry, did I miss the name of the book? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
Oh, no, I might
Before
not
you
have
hang
said
up.
it.
Oh,
The book is called Enough, and it's actually book one of a 4-part series. So this is just the first one, but yeah.
okay. All right. Thank you. I didn't want to miss that.
First, thank you for your service. Second, I think I need a nap. That like you're I feel like I did all this stuff now. That was just amazing. And
Good.
what a way to grow up. And what a way to carry those lessons through everything that you're doing and will do. That's really important for people to just kind of like harness and realize that, like, your early experiences can be, the rock foundation for your later life experiences. So thank you so much. This was fantastic.
Absolutely.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thanks, Jeremy.
Thanks, Jeremy. What are you thinking, Aaron?
Um, I mean, what a powerful story. I think for me, the thing that stands out is there was never a point in your life, at least what you've shared today, that you let yourself be the victim. I'm sure that you had lots of moments of like feeling frustrated and down on yourself and uh, probably micro moments of helplessness, but you move to solution very rapidly. And like it's amazing with that mentality what you then accomplish next. It feels like everything that you went on to next was bigger and better than the last thing that you did, which was really cool to see. So just a good reminder of like you don't even have to go that big all the time, but you definitely can't play the victim. And when you find yourself in that headspace, understanding that you have full control over what happens next, and literally anything is possible. And I think sometimes we all just need a reminder of that. So, so grateful for your call today.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Aaron.
Aaron.
Yeah, awesome. Corey, what are you thinking?
Similar, Aaron, on that victim mentality. You have none of that. You have none of that victim mentality, and that is just amazing. And this is going to sound weird, but I would love to meet your parents. I just think whoever
Yeah.
your parents are, did an amazing job with you because
Oh,
I'm old,
thank
I'm
you.
old, so I can say this, but to me, I think you're just an amazing kid and such, I don't even know, you could be my age, but I'm just in awe of you and just how you've handled yourself since you were young. You're amazing. Did a great job.
That literally means so much to me. And I didn't get the chance to share this, but my dad actually passed 2 years ago. So it's heartbreaking to not have him to fall back to ask these questions. And I wish that he could be here to read the book that I have finished, because I definitely started it when he was alive, and he was a huge, reason behind that. And he's just always really pushed me to achieve and to just, sounds corny, but to do anything or be anything that you want to be. So yeah. I definitely owe it all to my
I'm sure he's very proud of you.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you, Corey. Kasha, what are you thinking?
I had the same thoughts as Corey. I was so curious about your parents and about your dad, especially because you talked about him. But also the concept of the stripping down of everything and just asking yourself a question about your identity and who you are. And that ties so well with how we started this call with a 12-hour walk and just being with our own thoughts. So the lesson that you just taught us today and the question that you're leaving us with is just an amazing opening for that walk that some of us I know that are going to take on. You're freaking amazing.
Oh, well,
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kasha. Jenna, it's been a pleasure. It's been a privilege. Thank you for joining us this morning. This is the Miale team. We are Connecticut, New York, Massachusetts, top real estate agents, top producers, totally committed to winning. Shane's got her hand up. One last thing, Shane. We can't leave without Shane. What do you got, Shane? Good morning.
Well, I'm on Jenna's. Hi, Jenna. I'm on her Instagram. And are you Miss Oklahoma?
I'm Mrs. Oklahoma City.
Yes.
Did you just forget to tell us that?
Oh, yeah, by the way,
way.
I'm also Miss Oklahoma City. Right.
Yeah, it is part of my story. I'm going to compete for Mrs. Oklahoma. There's just so much recognition with the crown on your head, that even when you get in the right room, you want to be able to be approachable and go up to the front and shake hands with whoever it is that's up there. So
I was Mrs. Connecticut American in 2020,
awesome.
and I didn't
my
didn't have
goodness.
a really great experience with the people. So
Good.
I hope yours is better and that there's nicer people in Oklahoma.
Yeah, pageants are rough. And I will say rodeo queening is actually way easier than regular pageants. It's grueling. I mean, it's tough, but there is a lot there too, just with the year that you can use to your advantage and to serve. And yeah, I have my head on straight after Miss Rodeo America. Don't worry, I'm not
You
so
also
much
forgot to mention
invested in
she's
this
the
one.
senator from the state of South Dakota. Yeah, by the way. Yeah.
If there's a Mr. Bald New York, I'm going after it.
Yeah, Mr. Bald New York, Jeremy, you're in. Jenna, amazing. I think you really do captivate and are the living embodiment of you can be whomever and whatever you want to be. You have to make the decision, decide, and then commit. And so you've made a big impact here this morning on all of us. And thank you. If impact and contribution is part of your core values, you've done that today already, and it's not even in Oklahoma. What is it, 8:30 this morning? It's not even 9 o'clock yet, so you have accomplished your mission. Hey guys, we owe Jenna a little debt of gratitude. Let's get on her socials. Let's follow her. Let's thank her. Let's be present with that. And you guys know the drill, right? It's Friday. That means weekend open houses are on the docket. That means plenty of opportunity out there. The market is great, guys. Like, it's really actually starting to cook. Like, there's deals everywhere. Yesterday was so much fun to be around everybody and hear everybody talking about all the opportunities that you guys are uncovering. If you're feeling like you're getting left out, I guarantee you're just not talking to enough people, because people are talking. There's opportunities out there. So go make it happen. Appreciate y'all. See you Monday morning. Bye. Thank you again, Jenna.